can still hear me, right? Oh.
And we are live. So exciting. And hi, everyone, and welcome to LiveArt's debut webinar series. This is our first episode. Just to give you a brief explanation intro into LiveArt. So LiveArt is a Web3 platform for art. We mainly are focused on analyzing the art market and giving away detailed sales breakdowns after every auction sale that is happening. Also, we have a trading floor where we are aiming to sell blue chip artists, so you can basically buy or sell your art. And as a part of our Web3 department, we do NFT drops with blue chip artists. And just yesterday, we had an amazing drop collection review by Chris Levine. You can follow us on Twitter to always stay in the loop of this news. And we were also super excited and proud to launch the first artist into Web3, the Boundless collection by Yumin Jun. And Catie here also were helping us to execute this collection. And so today we are here to talk about Bitcoin Ordinals, just a quick guide. Last week, Taproot Wizards sold its Quantum Cats collection, which comprised 303,033 pieces for $13 million. And recently, Binance also launched an NFT marketplace that would add inscriptions of Bitcoin Ordinals. At the same time, this week, Bitcoin hit 50,000 K in 2 years, which is super impressive. And we would like to explore the significant results with our speakers. And we also have here Luisa, Head of Business Development at LiveArt. Yeah, welcome, Luisa. Hi, Catie. Hi, Zed. If you can just briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah, I guess I can go next from the LiveArt team. So I'm Luisa. I'm heading up business development and project delivery at LiveArt. And as Lola said, we've been working in the Web3 space for a few years now with a primary focus of bringing leading artists into Web3 communities through NFT collections. So we're super excited to be here and to talk about Bitcoin, which has emerged, for some time now, but most recently has been getting a lot of attention for the recent NFT collections. So we're really excited about discussing, how this could impact, artists that are looking to launch in the Web3 space and create collections in Bitcoin. So yeah, I'm super excited to learn more and also to help along the discussion.
I can go next. I'm Catie. I've actually worked with LiveArt before. This summer, as Lola said, we helped for just a short part of the project for Laughing Man. I run a Web3 user acquisition agency. So we focus on helping Web3 companies basically get users. And we do that through 4 pillars. First is branding. Second, go to market. Third is KOL campaigns. And then the fourth is PR. So we work exclusively in the Web3, some emerging tech space. We do NFTs as well, or ordinals, which we're talking about today. But the only space we've played in terms of that has been in the high kind of luxury art space. So this is very much on target with my experience and the firm's experience. And I'm excited to discuss it because I think 2024 is going to be a great year, especially in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Bitcoin is more than doubled already. So excited to see where this conversation goes and what happens this year. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. That, if you're here, can you please introduce yourself? We're so excited that you joined us.
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me? Okay, excellent. Yeah. Hi, guys. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for I didn't know there was a video component. I thought it was an audio only webinar. I'm Zeph, founder of Oars Games. We do gaming on Bitcoin. We would arguably the first gaming project on Bitcoin. We launched March of last year. So Ordinals came out, a little over a year ago, January/February of 2023. We started inscribing retro arcade games on chain as Ordinals. Each Ordinal has a size limit of about 200, 300 kilobytes, which is big enough to fit just about an arcade game or a part of an arcade game, like one stage of a arcade game you played as a child. So we started doing that as an experimentation a little over a year ago. Just about a year ago. And we launched a token, a BRC20, March 15th last year. So 6 days after BRC20 standards came out, and combining game with a token, we became a GameFi project. And we've been doing 4 gaming seasons. A combined 120,000 wallets have played our games, and we have a very active community over in Asia, in Southeast Asia, what else? Yeah, we've been inscribing different mediums on Ordinals since the beginning, and I've personally spoken with art on Bitcoin has been a major theme in the Ordinals community since the beginning. When Casey launched the Ordinals protocol, his intention was to create a protocol for art on Bitcoin. So Casey himself has been big proposer of art, supporter of art on Bitcoin, and there's been many different projects. One community I'm active with is On-Chain Monkey, with the founder Danny Yang, early Bitcoiner. They're very active with inscribing different art on Bitcoin. And also I'm part of Quantum Cats community that minted last few weeks ago. And the Chinese Quantum Cats community is very active here as well. So yeah, super happy to be here and super excited to talk about the latest development on Ordinals and how we could do art differently on Bitcoin, and how that's interesting for anybody, all the art lovers around the world. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Wow, that's super impressive. Thank you, Katie, and that. So I think we can just start and take it easily. Just try to do it as a super simple guide to Bitcoin Ordinals. Because as that just said, just super kind of new technology, only 1 year old. So I just take it like simply that if you can please explain what are Bitcoin Ordinals, how do they work? And basically, I'm just curious why you decided to do the first game using their inscription. Just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the most simplified version of what exactly is an inscription or an ordinal, or together you call it an ordinal inscription. It's basically putting data on Bitcoin, and the way to do it is by so Bitcoin is meant to be a P2P, a peer-to-peer financial network for sending money, right? Essentially, and Bitcoin does that through something called a UTXO, unspent transaction output. So think of it like every time you send money to someone using Bitcoin, you have to cut a check. And on that check, you specify the amount that you want to send to someone. And within that UTXO, then the check, quote unquote, check that you're sending, there's many different places where you can write text. Like you have to put on the address of the other person, the amount, and there's an area called witness data. So similar with like a memo area where you send money in like a real check or real banking transaction. On the memo, you can put like a sentence or like a small memo for like, this is a money for like tuition fees. This is money for scholarships, etc. Similarly, on Bitcoin, you have that placeholder where you can put a string of text to specify the purpose of the transaction. Just about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, in 2021, there was an upgrade to Bitcoin called the Taproot upgrade, which allowed for the witness data to be expanded from something like 80 something bytes of data, so like 80 something characters or text, right, to about it's like to much bigger. So you can put a very large chunk of data within that witness data as a text. So all the file formats that we send to each other, like be it an image, be it a video, and a MP3, any file format can be. It's just a string of code, essentially, right? So you can put that code onto that witness data and send it to someone, and that becomes like an NFT, right? In the sense that it's different. It's unique in the sense that whatever you're putting it on, whatever you're saying, it's unique to that single transaction, right? So you can put an image in that data and send it to someone, and that receiver will have that image on that transaction output. So that's what an inscription is. Now, the ordinal part of this is that it comes from what Catie created, which is called the ordinal theory. And ordinal theory means that every single Bitcoin every single Bitcoin can be broken down into 100 million satoshis. Right, that's the smallest denomination possible for a Bitcoin. You cannot go smaller than one satoshi. Similar with like how $1 can get broken down into 100 cents. Right, you cannot go under 1 cent. So the idea is, so if you can have 1 million 100 million sats per one Bitcoin, then you can have a total number of sats for all Bitcoin ever in existence, right? And because the way Bitcoin is mined, these sats all come out in a sequence. So you can have the first sat ever and the last sat ever, and within that string, you will have every single sat ever lined up in a single file sort of fashion. So you can put a serial number on every single satoshi ever within Bitcoin. So it's kind of like the every single dollar bill, you will have a serial code on the bottom, right? So similarly with Bitcoin, you have a serial number attached to every single satoshi. So what that creates is a non-fungibility of a fungible coin, that is Bitcoin. So every single sat is unique and different. The original intention of creating ordinal theory for Catie was the ability to collect what's called rare sats. So the first sat, for example, of every single block that comes out, right? The first sat of every single halving, the first sat ever, the last sat ever. It's like these sats are unique and collectible in the sense that they're very, very rare. Right? So they come out once every event, and they're more uncommon, right? So you combine ordinal theory, like every single satoshi is unique, with inscriptions. So putting data on chain, you get ordinal inscriptions, which is which is the ability to put data on Bitcoin, and every single one of these inscriptions is unique, and you can put them specifically on sats, on which sat you want. You can put them on a common sat, on an uncommon sat, on what's called an epic sat, legendary sat, etc., mythic sat. So you can have different categories and degrees of rarity associated with the sat itself, and then the art that you inscribe on it, or whatever other data you inscribe on it. And that's how NFTs are on Bitcoin. What's very unique about this, if anyone is familiar, if you're familiar with Ethereum NFTs or NFTs on Solana or other chains, you can tell by now that it's completely different, the way that it's done on Bitcoin versus on a smart contract chain, right? With a smart contract chain like Ethereum, you basically you deploy a smart contract onto Ethereum, and it specifies, there's like, for example, there's 10,000 NFTs in this collection. Each one of them points to a certain image, and all the images are supposed to be different. They have different traits and rarities. It's all summarized within a smart contract. Without that smart contract, there is no collection. And that smart contract oftentimes is controlled by a centralized entity, like an individual or a company or a project team. They have control over that smart contract. They can alter the image, they can change the traits, they can just make that whole collection different or disappear if they choose to. Whereas for Bitcoin, on one hand, the inscriptions are quote unquote forever, because it is not possible to uninscribe something. Like once it's called inscription because precisely you are inscribing data on chain. Like there is no way to erase it. So that's the immutable aspect of it. And the other part is it's not really controlled by anyone. So you can interact with the Bitcoin blockchain directly using a inscription service, or you can run your own node on your computer and just inscribe on chain by yourself. Nobody can tell you, no, you cannot inscribe something, or you cannot put this data on chain. It's completely permissionless. And once that data is on chain, it is immutable, which is very different from Ethereum and Solana. I'll close with a final thought on this, is that Elon Musk famously said, I think a few months ago on a podcast, that his issue with NFTs was that they were file pointers to data that's not actually on chain, right? So you can have he's referring to Ethereum NFTs, we believe, is that it's basically a smart contract pointing to the files that are the images, and you collect those images as NFTs, but those files are not on chain, and those images can be altered. Whereas for ordinal inscriptions, that changes completely, right? And that became kind of like a turning point in terms of narrative, in terms of the general public's understanding of what NFTs are and how they should be done. When there is someone like Elon Musk saying that the NFT data should be on chain and they should be immutable, and that's what makes ordinal inscriptions so different and so fascinating. They're very different from all the other NFTs that we've experienced with up to this point.
Thank you. I just kept muting and unmuting myself. Thank you so much. I think you covered it all. Like it gave me even like much better understanding. Thank you so much. And Catie, I was wondering if you have some case studies, as you have a major background in Web3 marketing. Maybe you dealt before with some projects related to Bitcoin or Bitcoin Ordinals, and you can share your experience.
Yeah. So most of the projects we've done, we haven't done anything on Bitcoin with Ordinals yet. But it's kind of one of those things where it's been coming, like we've had a couple different calls with a couple different communities that it's coming to the surface. I think in the next couple months, we'll probably have a project or two in the space. It seems like there's this tug of war between NFTs and Ordinals and what is going to take over the space in 2024. I actually wanted to ask a question to Zeth. Is that right? Is that how it's pronounced? Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, in terms of, because one of the things we're finding, because we've talked to a couple of different projects that are looking to launch an ordinal collection, and there's like this internal pull between the two different communities in terms of like the Bitcoin purist and the people that want to see Bitcoin used in new capability, like what Bitcoin has the capability of being. What's your opinion on that? Like that within the community, you seem obviously to be very much in the community. What do you think is going to happen? Because it seems like it has the potential to divide a bit. especially what we saw with the people that were trolling Taproot, which was, the topic of kind of this webinar. I just wonder, you being so in the community, what are you seeing in terms of like the two different bands in the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question, and I think the answer will differ a great deal depending on who you ask. Because as you mentioned, there are two very distinct factions within the community. On one side, what we call Bitcoin maximalists or Bitcoin maxis are usually refers to people who believe that Bitcoin should be used as it currently is, or as it was about over a year ago before ordinals, and that it should not be used for putting art on chain, putting data on chain, putting as a storage layer essentially. It should be used for a peer-to-peer transaction network, and that's that should be the way that it stays. Everything that's happened since ordinals are a mistake and should be retracked and kind of downgraded back before Taproot upgrade, and all the data should be just you should stop doing what the entire community has been doing for the past year. And on the other hand, on the other side of the debate, it's a much more diverse crowd. You can call some of them are ordinal maxis, people who believe you should be doing ordinals. There's also a bunch of a very big community now around fungible tokens. So starting with BRC20, and then later there came out like many different token standards like SRC20 with stamps, atomicals, ARC20 with Lightning Network. There's Taproot assets and Nostril assets. There's so many different fungible token standards and communities that have sprung out because of this innovation and revolution that's happened. So I mentioned that because the fungible token aspect contribute a huge part to activities on Bitcoin, right? If you look at the gas fees or the miner fees with each transaction that people put on, you just go to mempool.space, right? You can see the activities, every single block that come out, and how many transactions are put in, what people are paying for the fees. Since ordinals came out, it's had a big bump, but since BRC20 came out, since all these tokens came out, it's had a crazy ride. It went up from back a little over a year ago when we started. Fees were in like 6 sats per vbyte, under 10 sats per vbyte. That's how much it costs per byte of data that you inscribe on chain. But now we're constantly looking at a minimum of about 20-30 sats per vbyte. And oftentimes when people are, FOMO minting something, it can go up to 200, 300, up to 800, 900, over 1,000 even, when people are really FOMOing to mint something. This has happened on Ethereum, right? If we come from Ethereum or Solana, we're not surprised to see that kind of activity. But for Bitcoin, this is the first time after ordinals came out, it's the first time that people are seeing this level of activity on Bitcoin. So of course, there's a lot of, I would say, shock, maybe even a culture shock, right? That people are not used to seeing this. You're clogging the network. People call it you're breaking Bitcoin. And the argument from the ordinals side of the debate is that if people are legitimately want Bitcoin to become universal, to be widely adopted by millions and millions of people, then this level of activity is what's needed, right? That's what will come eventually. And the fact that it's happening today, it's simply a test run to stress testing the network to see how robust it is. And if there are any issues, we have many opportunities to fix it and to do upgrades and so on and so forth. So my prediction is that ordinals is not going away. There's been attempts to try to stop this. It has failed. And it's not because of the decentralized nature of Bitcoin. No one entity controls it. Even the most quote unquote core. There's a software called Bitcoin Core, and then the developers for that software have tried to stop the ordinals from continuing to inscribe on chain. That hasn't worked. So with Taproot Wizard, with Quantum Cats, that whole side of the narrative led by Udi and Eric. You will see a lot of that trolling of the Taproot Wizards, or the Taproot Wizards trolling back at the Bitcoin maxis. It's become a meme, right? It's become a meme inside the community to make fun of each other and to even bringing this onto big stages. Like if you go at the Bitcoin Miami conference last year, on the main stage, Udi and Eric went on stage dressed in wizard robes, and had a debate against a few Bitcoin maxis on this topic, and the shots were fired. It got pretty bloody. But I think we're going to keep seeing that for a while, because Ordinals has not become mainstream yet. As much as we enjoy the activities, the community gets bigger every single day, but it's not mainstream. It's not ubiquitous. Not everything, not all the artists and all the creators and games and DeFi and everything that's happened in Web3 is coming to Bitcoin. It's coming slowly, but it hasn't been put on Bitcoin yet. So with the bull run right around the horizon, with the halving happening, and there's a lot of macro factors that are very bullish for Bitcoin. And many people predict that this what's called a super cycle, that Bitcoin was going to shoot up, and people are going to the price is going to stabilize at a very high level, and it will be more ubiquitous than ever before.
Right.
With all this background, I really think that the attraction for activities to move on to Bitcoin is there. So with Ordinals, it simply created a conduit and that's very, I would say, unstoppable at this point, and it's just going to keep going. That's my personal
question from like a marketing perspective becomes, because obviously from marketing in Web3 is like such a niche type of marketing. It's not at all like digital marketing, like Web2 or just traditional digital marketing is. Yeah. And what we've done, what like the playbook has been for NFTs on ETH, NFTs obviously for the last 3-4 years is completely changed from 3 years ago, obviously, because we were dealing with bull run, and now we went through a bear, and now we're kind of going back into a bull. But I don't really know if it's necessarily going to be the same type of NFT bull. But I wonder, because we had that lull in the market in terms of traditional NFTs on Ethereum, and now Ordinals are popping up, if we're going to see more of a bull run with Ordinals this year than we will with ETH NFTs. And I wonder from a marketing perspective, if the playbook will be different for the Ordinal community, or if it's going to be, can we apply the same tactics and the same philosophies and the same approaches that we did for NFTs to Ordinals? It's just because like there is such a different philosophical idea. Obviously there's tech difference, but there's also like the communities are so different as well. So it's definitely like a learning point for me, just listening to you and kind of studying it and listening to different projects. And I'm just interested because, we have like NFT New York, which is all around NFTs, but we have an Ordinals conference, or what will that look like?
It's a super interesting topic you bring up, because I went to Ape Fest in Hong Kong last November, and that's the pinnacle of ETH NFTs. Ape Fest was like the event to go to for during the last NFT summer, NFT bull run. And I talked to people at Ape Fest last year. Very few people had heard of Ordinals or NFTs on Bitcoin, right? Some of them have heard about this development, but very few, like virtually no one I interact with was like, collecting Ordinals. So it's like a very different community. It's like, I think Web3 has gone to a point where different communities it's possible to have very large communities that don't really overlap. So back to your question. I would say that because so every single bull market has different set of narratives, and people FOMO into new things, right? New developments. So unless Ethereum NFTs have something very novel that's different from what we had in 2021, 2022, it's over almost 2 years now, right? So if you're just doing the same thing as the last bull run, it's probably not going to get that much traction in the following. Like a good example is like ERC 404. That was a token standards / NFT standards, or a mix between the two, that was dropped on Ethereum about a couple weeks ago, and it's completely taken off, and became a sensation for a few weeks now. And the reason for that is, Ethereum NFTs, some people argue that has not seen innovation or this kind of like new activity, novelty, for a long time. And having something new has unlocked a lot of liquidity or FOMO sentiments from this community. I would argue that Ethereum, it's still a super active, engaged, and young community that are constantly looking for new assets with on blockchain, on-chain assets, and but they are, and if some of them have moved over to other chains that have more activities, like people move to Solana, people move to some people have come over to Bitcoin Ordinals, like the project like DeGods. They created Bitcoin DeGods, and they moved their project from Solana to Ethereum, and then other projects have done it, similar things. But I would say that as a general public, I would say that for example, in like the Asian community that I'm really plugged into, like in Hong Kong, a lot of like ETH NFT people that bought and sold NFTs, we were trading together in the last bull run. Right now, they're looking at fungible tokens on Bitcoin, and they're buying and selling these on a trading perspective on centralized exchanges like Ordi, like Sats, right? These BRC20 tokens, and then they're slowly then looking into ordinals on Bitcoin, and how and potentially getting into like Quantum Cats and Node Monkeys or Ordinal MaxiBiz, etc. Bitcoin Frogs is another one. So they seep through, but this process is not. It's not like overnight everyone starts moving from ETHs to Bitcoin Ordinals. It's a very slow process, and it takes a lot to get to change people's mindsets and start to understand because NFT is about culture. I don't know if you agree, right? I mean, art is
the traditional sense, right? Like the art sense of NFTs, not like what we're starting to see in terms of like loyalty and all the different applications of NFTs, but like
right. Like if you're really trying to bring together a group of people, you're trying to create a community around it, right? Not just like gamblers trying to make a quick money and flip something. But if you want to build a real community of engagement, then you have to put it out. Like culture is a huge element, right? You have to bring people who have similar culture, agree on similar culture values to be within these NFT communities. If that's like kind of like the foundation for how you think about different NFT communities or building NFT communities, then like ETH NFTs and Bitcoin Ordinal communities are going to be pretty different. And to be creating new NFT communities on Bitcoin would take a different set of, I would say, culture values, and maybe adjusting marketing slightly different based on some of these values for Bitcoin and for Ordinals. But I would say that on the technical side, in terms of like the techniques that you do, like using influencers or like doing webinars, doing podcasts and spreading the alpha, right? I think that's going to be very similar. It's just how information gets accessed through Web3. But in terms of like the core message, like the missions and the values, the underlying the ethos of different projects, I would say for project founders definitely, or for artists, right, definitely should be looking more into Bitcoin and to study like the culture values within these communities to be tailoring artworks or NFTs that's more suited for this segment.
I'm taking over your webinar, Lola. Go ahead. I had another question, but I don't want to take it over. So
no worries. I love how we're exploring marketing perspective, because I also do marketing, so it seems super nice, and your questions are extremely relevant. But I was wondering, when I was preparing for this webinar, I made a question, what would be the difference between regular NFTs as we know them and Bitcoin Ordinals? But now when I opened my Twitter like yesterday, it was all over about the news, what are and what is ERC-404. And I was wondering, would ERC-404 on Ethereum be super close to how Bitcoin Ordinals work technically, or it is not the case?
Probably not the case, because ERC-404 essentially is a combination of ERC-721, which is NFTs in the traditional sense, and ERC-20, the tokens on Ethereum, like ApeCoin, for example. So you have like you can have like for example, you can have a Bored Ape, and then it can convert into ApeCoin, and then it can convert back to the Bored Ape as you transact the Ape coins. That's not really how like Bitcoin Ordinals work. Yeah, it's possible to do it on Bitcoin with some kind of mechanism, and many people have. I know a lot of people are probably studying, looking into that and see how they can create a BRC version of 404. But yeah, no, that's not a direct way of how it works on Bitcoin. You can argue there is a standard called atomicals. What's interesting about atomicals is that every single inscription is based on one Satoshi. So arguably, if you can have a token that's so for example, you have a token that has a total supply of 100,000. The minimum value needed for that token to exist is 100,000 sats. You cannot go lower. Like you to inscribe anything, to have any to have one unit of anything with atomicals, you need one Satoshi. So by having X number of ARC20 tokens, which is atomical tokens, you need to have like X number of sats on Bitcoin. So you can sort of, there's similarity in there that you have the number of sats on Bitcoin equivalent to the number of FTs or NFTs that you want in the entire collection, but they're not exactly convertible between FT and NFT in the sense of ERC20s.
Thank you so much. I was also wondering on Quantum Cat's success, if we can talk. I know you're a holder probably, right?
Yeah.
And it felt super like out of the sudden when you're not a part of ordinal space. It just felt super weird because when you market a normal regular NFT collection, you're trying to find KOLs, PR efforts, stuff like that. And with Quantum Cats, it was like 2 or 3 Twitter spaces, and out of the sudden it was sold out. And if you can actually comment on this, how did the community find out about it? Was it like a really niche thing to happen? And because I also feel we would see more NFT, more art projects coming to Bitcoin Ordinals after this success story.
Yeah, I mean, Quantum Cats is a project by the Taproot Wizard team, and Taproot Wizard team, they have a huge following. I mean, Udi has 186,000 followers on Twitter, so that's likely where people learn about it first. And he doesn't have to do too much. He just have to tweet about it and go on Twitter Space. He has more followers than the Taproot Wizard official account, which is like 60,000 followers. And I think Quantum Cats is a new account, which probably I'm looking it up right now. So that's my understanding is that's like where people learn about it is through Udi's Twitter. He's the biggest influencer or KOL within one of the biggest on Bitcoin Ordinals, right? And the way that the reason for that is he's an OG Bitcoiner, been around for a very long time, very respected in the community, and he has found a way to rally the community together around kind of like the anti-Bitcoin maxi camp, to unite people to say no to Bitcoin's status quo, and to start a movement or revolution to expand Bitcoin, to have NFTs and culture and art and all these really cool and fun things on chain. And their reason for Quantum Cats is to bring back Opcat, which is a operator on Bitcoin that was in existence in the beginning of Bitcoin many years ago, but then later on with different upgrades kind of got taken out. What Opcat does is allows for I'm not technical enough to describe the details of how it works, but based on my primitive understanding is that it would allow for smart contract functionalities on Bitcoin. So the biggest reason for Ethereum was functionality. So smart contract, which unlocks the blockchain to be able to do calculations, to be able to do a lot of if then and automatically send transactions and send money across different accounts. For Bitcoin, it doesn't have that, right? So it's not possible today to say if this webinar goes over 10,000 people, then I send you 1 Bitcoin, right? It doesn't have that functionality. Right? You can't do that on Bitcoin in a decentralized way on chain, right? Obviously someone can write a off-chain script, lock up 1 Bitcoin, and then use a software to send 1 Bitcoin to you when this space hits over 10,000 people, but you can't do it on chain. But with Ethereum, you can, right? So what Opcat would allows for is for that type of functionality on Bitcoin, and that's the reason for them to start this. And it just culturally makes sense for people to jump on the wagon, mint one of these NFTs, support the cause to unlock Opcat, unlock the cat, and they've created memes around it. The NFT communities love a good meme. So the cat, it's the meme is around Schrodinger's cat. Is it dead or is it alive? You can find out through having one of these NFTs. You have they create a dead camp, a live camp, and they have competition on how they create content on social and to teach people about Opcat and tell people about why functionality is needed on Bitcoin. And people created videos and so on and so forth. It's really like a cultural movement, bringing people together to spread this across, which is, I guess, how they gained traction. But even without any of these activities, just by sheer fact that this is by the Taproot Wizard team, this is by Udi and Eric, it's interesting enough just for this project to be for the degens in this culture to FOMO.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's beautiful. And Catie, I want to jump quickly to you, and I'm wondering if you could just share a few marketing PR tips with our listeners in Web3. I think it could be a nice way, and we would be happy to implement them right after the webinar, because I think it is hard to enter the Web3 space. So your perspective would be super nice.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of those things that's kind of changing daily, but I think for the most part, one of the biggest points that we say to people is that it's not really about, I think Seth just kind of said it in terms of the fact that Quantum Cat sold out because of basically the people behind it, in the sense that it's not really about building your community to 70,000, 100,000. It's about the engagement behind there. So for us, a big thing that we do in terms of KOL marketing is making sure that we're finding the right KOLs that are on brand, that function more as a partner to create a real long-term partnership with projects, so that they're doing several things other than just shilling the project, that they're out there talking about it, they become an ambassador for the project, and that we really look at engagement over just numbers. I think that's a really important thing that people don't quite think of. We do know that Elon has changed the algorithm quite a bit on Twitter. So it's really important to always be commenting, not just be liking things. We tell everyone that, from a personal brand all the way through to projects. PR, I think PR is a really important thing to think about. So one of the biggest things is people just want to kind of create backlinks, and that's really the old way of thinking. What you want to do now is, for example, Zeth, you would be an amazing thought leader, have some giving your thoughts on stuff, talking about what's happening in the market, getting out there and speaking. Those are going to go way far. Those types of PR, quote unquote, activities or communication activities are going to do way more for a project and brand than just pumping out like link after link on the newswire. So we make a big point to talk about organic PR, talk about being on AMAs, being on these type of community functions in terms of webinars. All of that stuff is super important for our project. People want to know who's behind it. People want to know that they're trustworthy, whether they're doxed or not doxed. We did a project, I think it was like a year ago, that I'm thinking, honestly, that had they launched, had this been like an ordinal project versus an NFT or on ETH, they probably would have done much better than they did. It was the first on-chain GIF or GIF. I speak Spanish too, so I always mess it up. And it was made by the guy that did Skyladder. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix series. He's a Chinese artist. It's absolutely amazing. His pieces are at MoMA, and he uses colorful fireworks to create massive, beautiful pieces, and then takes pictures of them, and those become his artworks. And so the guy he was behind this project, and it was the story was so complex. We built the community in like 5 weeks, ridiculous, from nothing to 10,000. But the story was so complex, and it was such a cultural type movement that I think that felt through in the NFT community. Also was the bear market, which is not always a plus. But I think that if that same narrative had been an ordinal, I wonder if it would have been more of a success in terms of a project. But yeah, that's just kind of a takeaway. I think for my biggest takeaway in terms of marketing and PR is, one, give your opinion versus just and like have great conversations and get them out there and be on as many audio type of platforms as possible from a project perspective as well, from a personal brand. And then also, when building your community, make sure that it's a community that's engaged, not just about numbers, because that's really not going to like move the needle at all in terms of users or buyers or whatever your product might be in the Web3 space.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm really impressed by your case study, like 10,000 out of nothing. And this is an amazing result, like beautiful case study. And in my experience, it is always hard to market something to Web3 audience, which is not super like degen like, and the way you did it, I think it's beautiful. So also we are co-hosting at the same time our Twitter space, and for our Twitter space listeners, I would like to remind, if you are active and participate and ask your questions down in the comments to our speakers, you might win the Live Art Pass. Live Art Pass is kind of like a membership. It's tokenized on blockchain, and we have a really beautiful design made by creative coder. So yeah, don't miss out, and please engage, and I would pick a winner by the end of this webinar. Yeah, so going back to Catie and that, thank you so much again for joining us. So that I was wondering if you can provide your outlook for the future of Bitcoin Ordinals. How do you think, where is this moving? And I think, Catie, you can also jump in, because I know you're working on several projects that would use Bitcoin Ordinals.
Yeah. I think this year, Ordinals is around celebrated its 1 year anniversary about a month ago, so it's very, very young. There is the argument that because Ethereum NFTs have had a very successful bull run for a year or two, that the narrative on Bitcoin would happen much shorter, right? Because everybody has seen how it's done, and that was my kind of thesis coming into Bitcoin. So I was building on Ethereum for a year and a half before coming over to Bitcoin. So so my thesis was that NFT summer would happen on Bitcoin. And later, with tokens, they're, what's similar with like the ICO craze happened on Bitcoin, or it's still happening on Bitcoin. And that the DeFi summer would also happen again on Bitcoin, because that's just generally how ecosystems grow and blow up on Web3. With the entire everything around Web3 happen much faster and in shorter cycles, right? So I would say that because we were in a bear territory, just coming out from bear, that's when Ordinals was discovered and was launched, and people started joining in. Is a very positive sign for future success, because coming out from bear market is like the best time for projects, for protocols, for new innovations to take place, because that's when people start looking into new things. That's when capital starts looking into new areas to deploy capital. And so with all of these right pieces in place, I believe that the entire Ordinals community is going to see another tremendous growth in 2024. If I can plug in two events that's happening for this community. It's Bitcoin Magazine is doing their conference in Asia this year for the first time ever. So they've traditionally done it in Miami. This year they're moving it to Nashville, Tennessee in July, but they're doing Bitcoin Asia for the first time in May in Hong Kong. May 9th and May 10th. That's the 2 days conference. They're using the same venue as Ape Fest. And I've been working with Bitcoin Magazine, and they're one of their partners over in Asia as well. And we will be there for that conference, obviously. And so that promises to be like a really, really large event. Traditionally, Miami has had over 20,000 in the bull market, like 40, 50,000 people. Over in Asia, it's possible to bring another 10,000, 20,000 people over together. So we'll see how big that turns out. But it's a huge opportunity for projects, for artists, for creators to come and mingle and meet each other, and to be part of this ecosystem, right? After on the side, we will have a Ordinals conference. Ordinals Asia will take place on May 11th. That's where Ors Games is one of the co-hosts, and we're doing it with Xverse and Animoca, Darewise, a few other brands, Orzar, a few of the project based out of Asia to bring together this event. Ordinals events have had pretty good growth in the past year. We went from small meetups about a year ago, like 50, 60 people, to in September last year, there was a Ordinals summit in Singapore. That was the first time that Catie came out in person to an event and meet the community and talk to people. And after that event, Catie went back and came out with Runes, which is another token standards that's going to happen on Bitcoin. And he came out with a few other updates, upgrades for Ordinals. So I think that's a super helpful. That goes on to show like the amount of information and alpha that's exchanged at these conferences, and for people to really get alpha firsthand, and to learn about how project teams and how protocol developers are thinking about these different standards, how things are going to move going forward. So yeah, I would say that that's all happening immediately after the halving, which is in April, and then these events in May. So I would say the first half of this year is looking very good, as projects are preparing to for the halving, and to gather all their forces, and be excited for the Bitcoin halving. So that's going to be so much activity is going to happen around that time. And for the second half of the year, I think it's even more predictable, in the sense that a lot of people think that the bull market is coming. That will happen later in the second half 2024, first half 2025. So generally very positive about these time periods. Yeah, but of course in the middle there will be ups and downs, and individual assets will have their rise and falls. But in general, we're very bullish on Bitcoin and bullish on this entire community for this year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, I think this year is going to be super interesting to see what happens. We do a lot in the DeFi space. I think DeFi always is like an easy investment because people understand it more, so they see the immediate ROI on the investment there. So it's easier for investors. It's easier for that space to grow. Obviously, there's also traditional finance that has a stake in it. But I'm really excited. I think this year we had a call with Binance a bit back, and he was saying, the head of partnerships we were talking to, and he was saying the bull run isn't going to be like all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're in the bull run. It's going to be like picking up, and then all of a sudden we're going to see these amazing projects, and it's going to be continual. So we can't let our guard get down in that sense. I think Ordinals are going to be really interesting. I think this new community is going to give NFTs a run for their money. I think you made a really great point, Seth, when you said they've kind of run their course, NFTs. And so unless they're going to make a new statement, we're going to need to see some other than different utilities, which is obviously already happening. But if we want to go back to the puritist times of what NFTs were in terms of digital art, we're going to need to see new things come out of it. So yeah, we've seen a lot. I mean, the agency has been really busy since the beginning of the year, but not a lot of obviously NFT projects. Some ordinal projects have come through that we're talking to, so that's really interesting. And I'm just really excited to see where the market goes and the more diverse it becomes, because up until now it's something so new that there hasn't been like massive competition, I think. So I think it's time to kind of shake it up a bit and see that. I would totally love to go to this Ordinals conference you're talking about in Hong Kong and just kind of get a sense of the ecosystem, people there, hear their thoughts on it. I'm interested to see how Animoca is going to approach it, because they're kind of such stable people in the market. They've been around forever and just really well recognized and respected. But yeah, I think for us as a marketing agency, I think it's going to be really interesting what projects come in, how we pivot, how we become more creative in how we market and how we tap into communities and just make crypto really seen as kind of a real industry. A lot of people still don't see us as a real industry, right? So yeah.
Thank you so much. I think beautiful thoughts, Catie, and that. Thank you so much. And we are running out of time. So I'm thinking if you have any final thoughts you want to share, or even maybe you can share some tips for our listeners who are willing to maybe to join this community, to be a part of Bitcoin Ordinals communities, that would be great.
Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the best part about Ordinals is that it's permissionless. The best part about Bitcoin is that it's you don't have to go through a project to interact with the blockchain directly. So you can inscribe something on chain just for yourself, by yourself. It doesn't need to be a collection. It doesn't need to be a project. You can inscribe a poem in pure text. Anyone can do that. You can inscribe an image. It will cost a little bit more. When gas is low, it'll be reasonable. But you need to compress that image to make sure the file size is not too big. But you can put that image on chain, like a family portrait or some memorandum of something that you love, and it will be on Bitcoin forever. That's I would say that's a very romantic thing. Valentine's Day just passed. It's a good time to be thinking about that type of stuff, right? And you can gift ordinals because they're assets on chain. You can gift them from one wallet to another. You can send it to people. I think it's a great way to onboard people to Bitcoin. It hasn't, like, the alpha isn't out to the general public. I don't think many people understand that you can now put data on chain by yourself, and just you can write whatever, you can graffiti on Bitcoin all you want, and no one can stop you. just go through a inscribing service like Unisat, Ordinal Spot, OKX. There are many services out there right now. And I would encourage anyone who has listened to this webinar, Twitter space, to do that. Set up a Bitcoin wallet. If you don't have one, you will need one for this bull run. It will be very helpful to have one to hold on to all your assets that's coming up. And with that wallet, you can experience Bitcoin Ordinals firsthand, and it's only really by experiencing that you will really get the sensation that this is different. You'll click, and the aha moment will happen when you actually inscribe something. I remember the first time I sent Ethereum from a wallet to another, without going through a bank, right? That was my first Web3 experience, and I had a aha moment. I was like, oh, this money just went from my money to your money, and there was no centralized entity whatsoever, and it was instant, and we just paid like $5 in fees. And wow, that's revolutionary, right? And for Bitcoin Ordinals, that's another revolution that's happening right in front of our eyes, and it will get bigger and bigger as we move forward. There are over 16 million inscriptions now. Over a year ago, there was 0, right? And when we launched Ors Games, there was like 100,000 inscriptions, right? Now it's 60 million. So, and this number doesn't go down, right? It can only go up. And pretty soon we're going to see 100 million, 1 billion inscriptions, etc. So like, the earlier you go in and inscribe something, the earlier you get to leave your mark, right? And it's immutable, and it will be there for as long as Bitcoin. So encourage everyone to do that ASAP, and to really become, a active participant in the latest Web3 technology and development today. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll just close with my kind of journey into the Web3 world was about 5 years ago. My first project was working on Corda, which is a private blockchain, which is what a lot of the big banks use. And I think what Bitcoin or what Ordinals have been able to do in terms of kind of compressing down the amount of, or putting so many transactions into one transaction, I think what will be interesting is how this type of technology is applied beyond what we have seen so far. So banking, all these, I mean, ETH, the biggest issue with crypto or blockchain is the speed and the ability to process so many transactions at a higher speed across different markets, whatever. And I think that what we could see this year with what Ordinals is doing is how it opens up a whole new conversation to new markets and to new verticals. So we're not just talking about art. We're not just talking about digital assets. We can be talking about a whole nother kind of world that we're opening up. So I'm interested to see how that conversation changes. I think, as well as I think this will obviously impact the value of Bitcoin. So the fact that there's so many applications to it, the actual value of the coin that's tied to the chain, hopefully we'll just go to the moon because we have money there invested.
Wow. The problem with muting and unmuting myself just keeps happening to me. Anyway, that was a lovely discussion. Thank you so much. I think to sum up, we are setting up Bitcoin wallets. Thank you, guys. And the next webinar would be coming next Thursday at 9 a.m. EST. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Catie and Zes, for sharing your insights. And see you next week.
Thanks, Lola. Thanks, Seth. It was great to meet you.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you, Catie. Great meeting you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.